had to fight through a round of 16 group stage, then round of 8, all the way through to the finals, actually, and he came against some really tough opponents, including, of course, the one and only State, who has now gone to play in the Foyu house, although watching Choya's stream yesterday, he seems like his current role is tech support for Choya's streaming software. Got it fixed, though. I'll give him all credit for that. And that's pretty difficult. Choya's English is not the best, so managing to communicate how to operate OBS is fairly impressive in Konglish at any rate. Alright, folks. Star Station will be the map for this particular encounter, featuring Root Kane. He is in the red trunks, and he is playing Zerg to the southeast of Star Station for Team My Insanity versus his opponent and the former teammate. Currently down 2 games, needs a fantastic comeback to keep his hopes alive. To the northwest position in the yellow trunks, playing Terran, it is Masa.
He's actually dropping his barracks outside of his base, but it's at normal timing for a Reaper build, so it's just going to be slightly faster and maybe a bit of mind games. Kane is drone scouting, so he might run in and see this and assume that it's a more aggressive proxy, play a little bit defensively.
Speaking of proxy, Kane's actually checking for it, very much so. Wasn't it this map last time around that we actually saw that very strange proxy supply depot into the proxy barracks play against Major?
Yeah, it was. Actually right up above where his drone is now. But this, like we said, it is just 12 barracks, 13 gas, so it's going to be completely normal. And Kane isn't even drone scouting, so there's going to be no scare factor there. The Reaper's really just going to get there a couple of seconds earlier than it would have otherwise. And it looks like Kane is expecting the Reaper opening in. He's opening up with Speedling. And it's the same opening that Masa had done the previous 2 games, so pretty fair assumption from him.
Yeah, certainly. Just that slight little bit of variance that won't ultimately make that much difference whatsoever. The Reaper lands there maybe a second quicker, but it also means, of course, that this wall-off is not possible. But he's not going to keep the barracks there. After he's perhaps built the second Reaper, that's when he'll bring it back to the wall. It would be a little silly if he didn't.
Yeah, he will. It may delay his reactor a little bit on the factory, depending on how the timings work out.
There's a third.
Never
mind. Oh, he is bunker rushing. Okay.
Yeah, he does have a third Reaper in production. Or no, that's still the second one.
Yeah,
There's a possibility that he goes for a third and fourth Reaper and goes a little bit more aggressive with this. I don't really think that kind of thing is very good. I honestly don't even like the bunker for the Reaper, because the entire point of the Reaper is the mobility, the running around and harassing and whatnot. If you stick it in a bunker, it's not going to accomplish anything. Smart Zerg player will just sit back and wait, build a couple of extra Zerglings, and then take that down, and you kind of just lose the bunker, and that's it. It doesn't really help you too much, but Masa going for it here.
Yeah, well, he's going to have a place that he can get back to regenerate, so he jumps into that bunker and is able to start doing the tiniest possible bit of damage to that hatchery, but it is a bit of a safe place for that Reaper to go, and now, as you mentioned, he's gone back, and it has delayed his reactor just a little bit, sitting on a little bit more gas than he otherwise would have at this stage. Bunker's now covered in creep, and that doesn't have any effect, but it does mean that the Reaper is back to full health here.
It is back to full health, and the bunker's being salvaged, so that really... I don't know, I really just don't see what that accomplishes. Kane didn't even make any extra Zerglings. Well, a couple of extra. But I don't really particularly like that choice from Terran. I think that you're just harassed normally with the Reapers. But as is, we're ending up with a very normal situation here. The command center's coming down from Masa, and he's actually getting a second gas, so presumably going for a very fast Banshee here. I think that's going to be the case. Yeah, the starport is queued up.
Yeah,
so he's switching it up a little bit. Yeah. Switching it up a little bit, he was going for the 3 racks play in both of the previous games. This is a bit more normal, still on the aggressive side of normal, but the 3 racks is pretty uncommon, whereas Cloak Banshee is one of the more popular TVZ openers these days. But again, with perfect Overlord scouting, Kane heading in right as the starport comes up, he sees the tech lab and the starport, knows exactly what's up.
Yeah, he's certainly been very diligent this entire series when it comes to scouting and looking for opportunities, making sure what his opponent actually has, and it's been serving him very well up to this point. Hellion's on the way here, so fairly standard, but that is going to be the Banshee addition to that, which Kane is just going to flat out see immediately. He's not even going to lose that Overlord unless he really wants to. He spots that immediately, knows exactly what's coming.
And he's actually switching into 2-base Muta to try and counter this. He had a drone headed out to take the 3rd hatchery as the Overlord went in, pulled it back, dropped his additional 3 gases, and started up the flare. And that's interesting. The Banshee isn't really a powerful opener. It's more of a harassment and maybe a little bit tricky. Like, if it catches you off guard, maybe it does serious damage. but you're really only aiming to kill off drones and force a response from the Zerg. So most Zergs don't really feel that it's necessary to go for this kind of thing, but Kayn, very aggressive, as we've seen, willing to take any kind of opportunity that he sees, and he feels like he can get a lot of damage done if he goes 2-base Muta against the Banshee opener. And you often can, especially with the third CC coming down. We're not going to have a whole lot of turrets up. We're going to have almost no Marines, no Marine upgrades either. So it's definitely a possibility, especially if Massa doesn't scout this in time and doesn't really react to it.
Yeah, that is very true. And is now posturing in order to just try and deny a little bit of creep spread and then look to go in and actually do some damage. Scan is used, so he takes down 3 tumors for that, but there are already 3 queens trying to push that away. But this Banshee is going to make things a little bit interesting. I have to wonder if he can take the queens out and... Oh, he's splitting up. Okay, but the Overlord's going to see that immediately. The Overlord placement is fantastic from Kayn. There's a Spire going down the back. There is already a Spore, but it is out of range, so this is going to do a bit of damage.
Yep, he already taken down 2, 3 drones, and he also scouts the lair timing and the lack of a third base, so he 100% should know that it's 2-base Muta at this point. And we see Stimpack started, he's building tanks again. I don't know why. Someone needs to tell him that they're still worse than Widow Mines. And he has the double eBay coming down, which means he will be able to have turrets in time. Not going to be able to get that third base right away and be very, very ambitious of him to try and take it. But he's going to be fine with that, just continue to drop mules and secure himself. I don't really see this accomplishing too much for Kayn, and his third base is just now starting, which is pretty delayed.
Yeah. Massa is now working on just as many drones as he can actually get with this Banshee here. He was able to take a queen down at the front, but it did cost him a Hellion or 2. So a little bit of an even trade, I guess, and there are spare queens available here for Kayn. He is still sitting on 4, so he hasn't missed any injects. The Banshee has got 5 kills up to this point and is still alive. But with that queen there, and of course with the Mutalisks on the way, it's really not going to accomplish too much more.
No, but that was just one cloakless Banshee. So I think he's pretty okay with the trade he's gotten thus far. He forced a decent response. And going back in, I think at this point it's fine for him to just suicide for a couple of drone kills. There's no real big deal in keeping that alive. But he does back out. He's going to live to fight another day. See, all of the upgrades actually coming out from Kayn right now, and that says that he's really not looking to do much damage with these mutas. He's not investing all of his gas into getting 9 or 10 mutas out as quickly as possible. He's getting double upgrades for ground. He's getting speed overlord upgrades for air as well. So he, despite opening up with 2-base muta, which is a pretty aggressive, pretty ambitious opener, he is aiming for more the mid-late game, and this is really, really strange and risky for Massa. He's actually running all of his units out around the map and going for a bit of a counterattack. But with the mutas across the map, and a pretty limited Zergling count, he might actually be able to kill this third hatchery off before Kayn can actually react. This is very strange, but it's going to work out for him.
Interesting, yeah, you're right, absolutely right. There's 2 queens there already, but the stim comes in. There was no combat shield done on these Marines yet, so it's still a little bit risky to go for it, but that is a large amount of drones that are just about to get hit as they attempt to transfer back to the other base, and Massa moving at lightning speed, going right for this hatchery at this point. There are a couple of mutas coming along, and an interception there from Massa as they attempt to join up with their brethren. Will Massa be able to actually get this hatchery? It's possible.
It's actually going to be a lot closer. Kayn respects this army too much. He didn't need to wait that long. He is going to clean it up pretty easily now.
Then he crushes it. One of those banelings connected, which on double-stimmed Marines with no medevacs and no combat shield was more than enough to finish that off. So Kayn crushes that attack quite handily.
But Massa, again, is absolutely fine with the trade he got there. He killed, I think, 2 queens, a ton of drones, a couple of mutas, and he got the hatchery down to half health, which can turn out, or can pay off later. I think he's being too aggressive here. He doesn't want to keep losing units as he has been. He needs to just accept his advantage, take that third base, and if he insists on making tanks, he needs to get a few more of them before he's going to move across the map.
Yeah, he's actually building Thors pretty heavily at this point.
I don't know. I guess that's a decent amount of units. Maybe with the tank and the Thor in there, that gives him enough tankiness. But attacking early on onto creep against speed banelings is just asking for trouble if you don't have Widow Mines.
And he certainly does not. And to be honest, I mean, there's not that many Marines there either. The Mutalisks come in and immediately take down the tank. The Thor's getting a couple of decent shots off, however, and Massa is able to push that one back. He does have the 1-1 upgrades, but his opponent does as well. Baneling's looking for a connection. Kayn kind of not really wanting to commit. He's being a little cautious here. Loses a queen as the Thor guns it down. The other Thor will take approximately 5 hours to reinforce from the back there, but the splitting is fairly decent. The Thor is eventually going to die, but at the cost of several Mutalisks, and now Massa looking to finish off this third base, and it looks like he's going to get it this time.
Really nice splits against the banelings there, and not the best engagement from Kane. That actually turned out much better for Masa than I expected.
Masa needs to...
Yeah, that's game
all that
over
works.
there.
Yeah, that's good too. I was going to say he's going to leave that alive, but no. That was definitely the victory there. Nice play by Masa. That was exactly what I was hoping to see from him.
Yeah, very, very aggressive, like surprisingly aggressive. And Kane was very surprised by the second move out there as well. He thought, I just killed off a bunch of army. I need to replace those drones. I need to start heading for the mid game. There's no way he's going to attack again after losing that many units for a handful of production and support units. And if you actually looked at his third base there, he had almost oversaturated it from essentially nothing. And he had no Zerglings really to support his mutas and banelings in that engagement. I don't know. It was a strange and kind of a risky decision from Masa, but it really paid off there. Really caught his opponent off guard.
Yeah, I like the addition of the Thor there as well. Not only did it really whittle down the health of that Mutalisk pack, and they couldn't back off in order to regenerate, meaning the Marines were a hell of a lot more effective, but it also did a fantastic job of being a really big bullet magnet, picking off queens, and just doing a lot of damage. So that worked out well, I've got to say. And you pointed out the splits, and you were right to do so, because those splits were actually great. He had really good positioning there. The Banelings did the minimal you could have possibly expected in that situation while on creep. So, great play by Masa. And we've been seeing kind of glimpses of that throughout both his original run with SHOUTcraft America and against Major, where he has that speed, and once he gets his aggression going, he really goes up to hyper speed, and he gets very, very quick and difficult to deal with. That's exactly what he did there against Kane. So we have a series on our hands. It is 2-1. It will not be a whitewash for our SHOUTcraft America champion. Absolutely not. As we go into the next game, which will be on Belshir Vestige.
Yeah. The biggest problem there, though, is he took a lot of risks to get that aggression going. Like, if Kane had... it was kind of on Kane, because insufficient scouting. He didn't have control of the watchtower. He had no overlords or Zergling scouts or anything to spot that initial army moving out. And that's mainly because no Terran would ever really do that, because if you see it coming out, then you kill it easily essentially for free with Mutiling Baneling, and then you have complete game control, better economy, better army, better everything. And I don't know, that was just a really, really big, strange risk to take by Masa. And then even moving out the second time was a little bit risky. And it paid off for him there, but that's not really the most reliable way to play. And I don't know, I don't think Kane is going to get caught off guard by that again. The 2-base muta from him was also a strange choice there. I'm not really sure why he opted for that over the 3-hatchery.
Yeah, I mean, you did mention earlier that he did spot the Banshee quite early and decided, you know what, I'm going to try and counter that. But it was only a single Banshee, and it wasn't even with Cloak, so that didn't really help him that much. Yeah,
very smart by Masa not to overcommit, knowing that Kane knew. He just, a player of Kane caliber, if he knows that Banshee is a possibility, he's not going to allow it to really pay for itself if you invest in 2 Banshees and Cloak. So just going for the single one for harassment. And Masa, we've seen his Banshee control before in the games against Major. He's quite strong with them. He was easily able to make it worthwhile, and then just transition out of it very comfortably.
Indeed. Next game is going to be on Belshir Vestige right here. It is currently 2-1 in this best-of-5 series as the reigning champion looks to defend his title and take himself all the way to the finals to face off against either Hitman or Huck. Will he be able to pull that off? He was looking strong until he faltered there on that game on Star Station. Can Masa actually tie it up? We will certainly be finding out as we go into this game here on Belshir Vestige. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Root Masa. He is in the yellow trunks, and he is playing Terran to the northwest here of Belshir Vestige versus his opponent to the southeast position, the champion of SHOUTcraft America Season 1. In the red trunks playing Zerg, it is My Insanity Kane.
Poor Kane. If he wins this match, he's rewarded with his EVP against either Huck or Hitman.
Ooh. Well,
Huck, I mean,
go ahead, sorry.
Huck is like the perennial, no Zerg ever wants to play him ever. It's the most painful experience you'll ever get, and it's going to confuse and terrify you. And then Hitman, we just saw what he did to Scarlet, so...
Yeah, we did. I have to wonder
That's not going to be a fun series for any Zerg.
No. I wonder if Kane will be better equipped to deal with that when it comes to Hitman. He must have hit Hitman. God, that's the most awkward thing I could have ever possibly said. He must have run into Hitman a few times. Once again, Masa with the hijinks here, just deciding, you know what, I don't want to put my barracks in the main. I want to make it a little bit more difficult to scout.
And again, Kane has a drone wandering around, but last time he only checked for proxies and didn't go into the main, and it's going to be the same thing again.
Yeah.
I wonder if Masa just never ever 14 CCs, because it's well worthwhile sending out the drone if there's the possibility of CC first. but every single game he has gone Reaper first, and every single game Kane seems to expect Reaper first or potentially a proxy. So it seems like Kane has a really good read on him, at least early on.
Certainly seems to be the case. Down goes the spawning pool here. There's the barracks up, so Reaper is on the way. I think this is actually further away from the enemy's base. Yes, it actually is, but not that that'll make a damn bit of difference for a Reaper, but it is just put there to make things a little bit awkward. Kane is going to scout first the ramp, and he's not going to see a barracks there, but knowing what happened last time, he's probably just going to be saying, all right, you're up to your old tricks again. That's not a big deal.
Well, actually, last game, he never actually scouted the barracks placement because he didn't send the drone all the way, and an Overlord didn't see it until it lifted up and ran in. So he might have been kind of confused, except he sees the SCV coming out to drop a command center and the Reaper coming out, so he knows exactly what's going on now.
Yeah, that is true. So no overreaction there from Kane, not that he really had the opportunity to do that anyway. The spawning pool completes as is promised, and then the second Reaper on its way. Exactly the same thing that Marsa has been doing up to this point. 6 Zerglings coming out here, and 2 Queens.
6 Zerglings is actually a little bit more than... Most sorts feel pretty comfortable just making 4 and then waiting for their Queens. But 6, obviously, not a big deal. An extra pair, not going to change much one way or the other. And right now, we're just kind of waiting to see what Masa does, because he's the one who's been playing kind of funky early on in all of the games thus far. This is around the time where he might drop a second and third barracks, as he did in the first 2 games. And he hasn't gotten another gas yet, so it doesn't seem like he's going Banshee again. Oh, actually, there goes the gas, so maybe it will be that Banshee build once more. It worked out for him last time, so maybe he's gonna stick with what works.
Well, he took your advice after last game, left the second Reaper back to make sure that those 2 Lings couldn't come in and actually kill off that SCV building the command center.
Yep, saving himself quite a bit of time on the CC there. Good move by him. And he's also maintaining the control in front of Kane, in front of Kane's natural. Nothing he's going to be able to do there. An extra couple of Lings actually coming out from Kane.
Interesting.
Not enough to actually do anything, so he's just playing a little bit defensively. Strange and unnecessary, but not noteworthy.
No,
both of them just kind of building up at this point. Oh, and Kane actually scouting kind of too early here. He does see the double gas, but the starport just now starting. He actually sent the Overlord in so early that Masa could see where it was going to be and could build his starport elsewhere. Nice. But that Overlord is going to be in position to poke in once again and re-scout it down the road. And he saw the double gas, which is a pretty good indicator that it's going to be Cloak Banshee at this point in the game.
Well, these 2 Reapers get out nice and easy, and of course they know that speed is about to complete. He saw it researching, so he doesn't want to be anywhere nearby at this stage. Now the Hellions come to join up, though, and that's kind of the second phase of this. So keep your 2 Reapers alive, you add a few Hellions in there, and suddenly the fact that Speedlings are coming at you is not as scary as it previously was. And then, of course, you can throw that Banshee in there. So are we going to see Cloak? I mean, he is mining from both gas, so I cannot possibly see another reason for him to really do that. In fact, he's sitting on 200 gas now, and still not building Cloak.
He was definitely looking to go Cloak. The only reason he may not here, and he does start it at least, the only reason he may not go it is because that Overlord there is scouting it immediately. So he, of course, started it. The question now is whether or not he's going to cancel it and try and play mind games here.
3 small crawlers going down, so maybe.
He is trying to zone out that Overlord, prevent it from going back in and scouting. That makes me think he wants to cancel it, but it could be reverse mind games where he's trying to make it look like he's going to cancel it and then he actually doesn't, and then all of that.
All of that nonsense.
A little bit of harassment coming down Masa, but with 3 Queens there, it's not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, it does weaken the hatchery quite significantly. It takes it down to just above half health, so if he does want to go in again at some point, then that'll probably work out pretty well. Looks like Cloaking Field is going to finish here. He continues to research it, and he's got a second Banshee being added on. There are 3 spores going up, though, and 5 Queens, so how effective this is really going to be, do you think?
Probably not very. He only has 1 spore at each base, and then 1 at the important choke. So there is a little bit of room to maneuver around, especially if he gets in here and does some real damage.
He's learned to take out Queens, which would make things easy, but there are 4 Queens there, and there's a bunch of Lings really threatening, and one bad movement from Masa is going to result in a big surround.
Yeah, 4 Queens. Queens are just so good defensively against Hellion Banshee styles. This is really why they fell out of favor back in Wings of Liberty, just because you want to have lots of Queens early on anyway, and Queens are so very hard to do anything against. He has to be careful with this Banshee. That's just like 3 or 4 Queen shots away from dying.
I want to know where it actually took the damage. I mean, it must have taken it at the front there. We didn't get to see that. But, yeah, that does not help at all. He can't take any risks against spores there. So that's going to shut that down pretty hard. The second Banshee is already there and is starting to work its way through. And there are no Overseers out yet, but there is one on its way. And then again, you know, he just wanders into spore detection range and takes a lot of damage from the Queen. So this Banshee play has done nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, the previous game he made the smart decision to just play a little bit conservatively, not really invest into the Banshees. This game trying for some mind games, switching it up a little bit, and not paying off at all. Kane's defense has been absolutely impeccable, no holes whatsoever. Got plenty of drones going. His 5th and 6th gases are a little bit late. It's the only thing that's really non-optimal for him here. He's invested a lot of minerals into the Queens and the Spore Crawlers to keep himself safe. So slowed down his tech a little bit, but really a very comfortable position for him. And Masa opting for the slightly less common expansion, the one's a little bit closer, more aggressively towards Kane. And this means he's just going to be rallying all of his marine production and hopefully Widow Mines. I hope he doesn't make tanks again. Towards that base.
I don't believe he's built Widow Mines at any point in this tournament, actually.
Yeah, we haven't seen a single one from him yet, in this series at least. But he does have the reactor coming up, so that should be the case here. He's adding on lots of barracks. So I think he's just going to be going for the traditional Widow Mine bio train, assuming Kane actually takes the 4th base at some point. And we haven't seen one just yet.
Gotta watch out for the supply depots, actually, but he got lucky. Kane didn't run straight in, and he could have. That was an opportunity there, a little bit of a slip-up from Masa, but never mind. A game of throws in the case of that harassment, but right now Masa just trying to pick off as many of these creep tumors as he possibly can.
Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job of, I mean, we're just watching Scarlet play, so as uncomfortable as that series was for her, she still had amazing creep spread, and anything else afterwards is going to look pretty lackluster. But Masa's doing a pretty good job of limiting it. Smart decision by Kane here. He's actually going for the less standard 4th base for himself. More players expand towards their 3rd base. He is expanding away, knowing that Masa took that more aggressive expansion, keeping himself a little bit safer there. So it's a good choice by him. It's going to make it a bit easier to defend. This is a big, scary army for Masa, though.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to clear out a lot of creep. That Overseer is actually certainly at risk of going down. Killing the Overseers would be nice, considering the Widow Mine's coming up, but along come the Banelings and shove that back for the time being. There are actually 2 factories up and an armory coming up here for Masa.
Yeah, 2 factories. The armory is just for the upgrades right now, but he has shown a bit of a tendency to switch into mech units.
Yeah.
Or at least try and get up to tanks and Thors in the previous couple of games. I'm not the biggest fan of that style still. I think Widow Mines are too good to pass up on even after the nerf. But it does have some merit switching into a more mech-based style as the game progresses. Although right now, Kane is really in control. That attack didn't pay off too much at all. No. And Kane is now in full mid-game macro Zerg swing.
Yep, certainly. He's got his 4th hatchery up. That's about to be up and running. Masa still making his way across the map. And this large count of Hellions is certainly going to help against 74 Lings, but it's not going to help that much. We're not talking about Blue Flame Hellions. They're not upgraded. Then there certainly aren't enough to kill 74 Zerglings. So it is a little bit risky, I think, for him to be moving out here. I have to wonder what kind of damage he can do, if any.
Yeah, he has Widow Mines out now, so that's never to be underestimated. A couple of good Widow Mine shots can completely swing a battle. It's interesting. He's actually going for the 3rd base here, not continuing to push into the 4th. I'm not sure if he actually knew where the 4th base was or not. Maybe he thought he was pushing into a base there, but he is backing off immediately, so that does seem to be the case. He really needs to take out those central rocks and just push down the center instead. It's really not that much further, not that big of a difference.
Yeah, that's very true. At the moment, though, Kane is sitting on a rather massive number of units. A really, really scary number, in fact. And it's intimidating. I'm actually quite surprised that Master even wants to try going into that. Widow Mines are on the way. Drilling Claws are not done, so that's a little bit of a problem there. The Burrow goes in, but the Banelings crash over it already. And that was mutually assured destruction. Most of the mines go down, but a lot of the Banelings do as well. The Marines now pushing in. Second wave of Banelings go in. There are no mines to stop that. And huge amounts of damage inflicted. Master's army gets pretty much crushed there by Kane.
That was really pretty terrible Widow Mine usage from Masa. He just ran them in and burrowed them all together on one side of his army. You really need them spread out, and you need them pre-burrowed beforehand, so that doesn't happen. Kane was really easily...
why he doesn't use them then.
Yeah, he doesn't seem very comfortable with them at all. Kane was really easily able to deactivate them, and he already had a massive army advantage just because the early game went in his favor. So that was very easy for Kane. He should just push his advantage here. He doesn't have Hive coming. He doesn't have a massive economy. He doesn't want to just sit back and take it easy. He might as well push his advantage because he has a very big army advantage here.
Yeah, it's rather scary. And now he's building a bunch of Banelings, and it looks like he's going to be going after his favorite treat, and that's the supply depots of Marsa.
He really hates supply depots.
Ooh, that Widow Mine is actually not going to go off, in fact, so that was fine. The SCVs are most likely going to escape here unless Marsa makes a mistake, but those Marines certainly will not.
And Kane's happy to take trades like this. We were a little bit skeptical of them in the first game, as Kane didn't have quite as good of a position, and Masa was going for a bit of a scarier unit composition. But here, he can just trade units all day because he has such a big advantage in terms of production, economy, existing army. Anytime he trades, that's really good for him, especially given that he's staying on Lair Tech. If anything, he actually needs to be more aggressive here. He really needs to be making things happen, because Massa, for all the units he lost, he's kind of approaching a max, and he has pretty decent upgrades. He's mixing in Thors, so he's going to have a pretty beefy army. That's not really to be underestimated.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to harassment or actual damage done, really, by either side, it's actually been fairly lackluster, so you're right, he does need to go in there, and he's preparing some Banelings, but there's a Widow Mine there, and there are some Marines at the back with a bunker, so I'm not entirely convinced that this will do huge damage. Kane is going in for harassment here at the natural to try and distract Marsa, is going around the other way this time with his Banelings, looking to try and get some decent connections. Getting some, not amazing, but he's able to get a bunch of lings into that mineral line on the third, so he's able to deny mining and do significant damage there. Hasn't killed that many, though, and Marsa comes in and guns down the rest of those lings quite effectively. The mutas are still marauding over the natural, though.
Not the best Baneling usage from Kane there. He kind of got them split up. He trapped his Zerglings. He got some SCV kills for his trouble, but he traded a lot of lings for it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have much of a bank. He doesn't have a fifth base at all, and there's actually a drop at the third base at the same time that's taking out a queen and a lot of drones. And Masa's pushing himself back into this pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's very true, and we're starting to see Masa really get back into it very nicely. The Baneling splash comes in. I feel Masa could have easily picked up and got out of that, but he is more concerned with this attack that he's pushing towards the fourth base, and a bunch of lings coming in, but nowhere near enough. Where are the Banelings? Well, they're a little bit too late to the party there, and a bunch of lings are traded out effectively here for Marines. The Zerglings are not quite up there with the upgrades of Marsa. He's on 2-2, and he's starting to work on 3-3. No sign of a hive coming in right here from Kane.
I believe he does have the infestation pip. He has not started yet, which means that there's a pretty big clock on Kane right now. Once those 3-3 upgrades finish, life is going to get really, really hard for him. And that timing window is going to be absolutely gigantic. He really, really needs to engage before that happens, and that's a lot of mutas. He may actually just go for a complete counterattack base trade style, but he doesn't have enough bases to really feel comfortable doing that. He only has the 4 bases.
Well, that's a bunch of Banelings that just ran into a Thor and didn't actually finish it off. It finally goes down. The wall has been broken, and the Mutalisks are going once again into that third base to try and do as much damage as possible. Master's attack, for the most part, has been deflected, but both players sort of going at each other in a really ineffective way, but that was a nice one. Marsa didn't even split at all. I think he was distracted, having just lost his third base. Loses most of his Marines there for a bunch of Banelings, and things are not looking quite as good, but he continues to push. Marsa is sort of parading across the map with everything he possibly can, trying to take out Banelings as best as he can, and trade out and take out that fourth hatchery. That's not going to happen with Baneling hits like that, though. That's nasty. Marsa's been pushed back pretty significantly now.
Yeah, Masa's army just doesn't have enough sustainability. He only has 3 or 4 medevacs for the entire thing. So every time he stims, he puts himself deeper and deeper into the orange and red HP. And then he just takes 1 or 2 Baneling hits to kill everything off. He does have the 3-3 upgrades now, but he doesn't have a running third base. He's essentially mined out at this point. He's lifting off his main to run over and try and reclaim his original third. But his standing army is kind of mediocre. And Kane, not even maxed, and no hive anywhere in sight, but he has more than enough army to keep himself alive. And at this point, Masa is just basically all in.
I don't like the fact that Masa is engaging without most of his medevacs. There's only 3 there out of the total 8. Nice Widow Mine hits going off, taking out a lot of Banelings there, but that didn't kill the Muta pack, which is maybe the biggest threat right now and is having an absolute field day. The Banelings just chasing down this remaining Terran army here and plumping themselves in the center of the map. Things are looking pretty good here for our reigning champion.
Yeah, Kane's certainly in control now. If that 4th hatchery had fallen, maybe Masa would have something to say about this game. But as is, even with those 3-3 upgrades, it's going to take miracle Baneling hits. Kane basically has to run his Muta pack over a couple of Widow Mines and just lose everything to really get Masa back in this. He just doesn't have the economy or the army. He does finally have a decent medevac count with his bio, and they are 3-3. but I don't know. I don't see it happening. He's just so far behind in terms of unit production.
Yeah, Kane is really looking scary right now. He just hit 500 APM, in fact, as he was working his way through here. So he's clearly in his comfort zone. Mauling's able to pick off yet more of these Marines. And they are 3-3 now, but it's just overwhelming numbers at this point. The Mutas engage against 3-3 Marines, but not kind of the critical mass that you really need to scare them off too much.